Star Trek, The Nerdy Frontier. These are the discussions of the Queuetimes Society. Their continuing mission, to explore each episode, to seek out new topics and ridiculous observations, to boldly watch what they've already watched before.
Becca, Xander, I have a vow to make to both of you. See, both of you seem suspicious right when I said that.
Yeah.
Instead of being like honored or like at least pleased, you're both like, all right, here we go.
Because you're already married.
It's not that kind of vow. I just imagine that, with virtual reality and AR, augmented reality, that's coming out, I feel like the holodeck, or at least some beta version of it, is something that could be attained in our lifetime, right?
Yeah.
So I feel like maybe before we die, we'll be hanging out at the Queuetimes Society Lodge up in the mountains. And when we go into the holodeck, or if one of you is in the holodeck, I should say, and you're making out with a hologram, and I walk in, I'll leave. I'm not going to stay and linger.
Or knock or something.
But what if I half-heartedly insist that you're still welcome there? Would you stay for hours then?
I will still say you're being polite, and I'm going to go. I'm going to be a good hologram wingman right now. I'm not sure the situation exactly.
I'll
But I'm
find
backing
my
out.
own minuet later.
Oh, boy.
11001001. This is a fun
to
one.
represent, of course, we have 01 and 10, the representatives that we first meet.
Right. And then the passcode was 11001001. Spoilers.
What was that exactly? That was supposed to be like the prime binary number or something? Or does it represent both their names? What did they describe it as?
A binary comes in sets of 8 digits.
Right. 4 or 8.
Express something. So naturally, if you say that, then someone would say, oh, the password's in binary. I know exactly which combination of ones and zeros to use, even though I'm not in engineering department. I got this.
We're jumping a little bit ahead, but if you look at it's the way they died. It's the 4 of them. They're in an order.
Oh.
Ooh.
And it couldn't be that simple, could it? That's what I think that's what they were alluding to.
Oh. That makes sense, because I was very confused as to why they died lying upon each other, or quote unquote died.
Yeah.
Well, what happens in this episode?
Well, the synopsis, for at least from Memory Alpha, is that while a group of technologically advanced aliens board the Enterprise to update the ship's computer system, Riker discovers just how real a holodeck character can be.
Oh, yeah, she can.
Ooh.
Also, that's not all that's getting updated in this episode. They got a huge budget bump or something because there was really intense alien costumes. There was just a lot more, Jake, in our last episode, you noticed some fancy camera work. This was all about the fancy camera work in episode 11001001. And
We're going to get it right
something
every
else
time.
I noticed. Yeah. No, we can
We're going
never
to say it
abbreviate
efficiently, too.
Yeah.
They could have just called it binary, but no.
Right.
One of the more impressive shots from this episode was actually a reused shot. Do you know which one it was? It was reused from a different, from a Star Trek movie.
Troy, in episode 1, staring out into the distance, saying that they feel something.
Yeah.
Not quite. It's actually the opening shot where Enterprise is going into the space dock. That shot is from Star Trek 3, The Search for Spock, as a matter of fact. And I think they just put another Enterprise in.
Oh, so
Yeah.
it's part of the remastered?
No, that was in the original show. They actually had that
surprised.
shot.
It seems like, and you mentioned about the sets and the costumes and stuff. I guarantee you this was reusing sets from other productions that were like in the house or something like that.
Probably.
Thank you. Costume. You just reminded me that there was a moment where we see Yar and Worf heading off to competitive dodgeball or something. I
Parisi
forget what it was.
Squares. It's Parisi Squares.
Oh, Parisi Squares. I wrote Freezy Squares.
That's better.
Ooh, burr. Freezy Squares. And the costumers went all in on the shiny material, and then
They had
of course,
leftover from Power Rangers or something.
Yeah, and the Bynards also had really cool black turtlenecks with silver sparklies on the sides, and I want that outfit. At least in Animal Crossing.
Memory Alpha says that Parisi Squares, or Parisi Squares, was a vigorous and rather violent athletic game played by people from many worlds and ages during the 24th century.
And how is this different than dodgeball?
Its popularity among youth was a concern for parents.
It's sort of like the sport that they sort of reference as like the analogy to American football of like, this is really dangerous, but it's really fun and we do it anyway. We probably shouldn't do this. Like,
there was a whole conversation with Worf about the value of competition, too.
Right,
and like,
why
it's
keep
just a
score?
game, don't take it seriously. And Worf is like, shut it down, competition is real, and I'm here for it.
I didn't know this was a football analogy thing.
That's what I assume.
The interesting thing was like they're wearing pads on their knees and like one arm, but there's like no helmets involved.
Right.
You guys, don't laugh. This is dodgeball regulation safety wear.
No, I believe
in my
it.
mind, that's Freezy Squares for sure.
Freezy Squares.
Freezy Squares.
So we go to Starbase 74. We're getting upgrades, engine modifications. A little behind the scenes facts on this was that this actually was originally intended that this episode was going to take place before The Big Goodbye, the episode with Picard with the detective story, with the Binar's modifications causing the problems on that holodeck. Do you remember how had malfunctioned at the time? So that was originally going to be the reason. Instead, it was changed to the Binar's aiming to fix the holodeck to prevent those problems from reoccurring.
So as a writer, you have this scenario of we want to do a holodeck-based episode, but we always have to have the stakes. And what the stakes are can sort of be interchangeable. Is it that we have to get to the Romulan border to defend some other ships? Or is it that, the ship is going off itself and going to explode or something like that? But either case, it's the holodeck has gone haywire.
Or is it that we arbitrarily set a 4-minute timer and we need to rush to get to the bridge before our timer that we set goes off to explode the entire ship?
Right.
Timer.
That's a short amount of time to get out.
Right?
Yeah.
4 minutes, like to empty out, what is it, like an 1,100 person crew?
Well, if you have the power to cut between scenes without actually having to walk down a hallway, then you can save time.
Yeah, absolutely.
The evacuation was not super quick or organized. There was actually some fighting to get into the transporter room at one point, as I recall, right?
I wrote down, I really think there would have been more in a real life situation. Like, people are waiting patiently as 4 people stand to be transported out. Like, there would be pushing and shoving to be on that platform.
You think it'd be a Titanic lifeboat situation?
Absolutely.
Well, going off a little bit about that, too, one of the questions that might come up is, like, why is Wesley on the bridge? And why is Wesley in charge of the bridge? And this all kind of goes back to the same thing.
Because he got a haircut.
Because he got a haircut. When the starships are attached to a starbase, there's a sort of like shore leave mentality. So a lot of the people have left the ship already. The duty shifts are kind of over. The people that are there, it's like a skeleton crew is there. And so when Riker's like, "You've got the bridge," it's kind of like Dad parked the car in the driveway, and it's like, "Here you go, son." Like, it's not going anywhere, and there are mechanics working on it, but you've got the bridge.
I love that.
That's a great analogy.
Yeah. So that's why I think that not only is there a lot of confusion about like why are we evacuating if we're parked and not going anywhere, and like 2, that's why there aren't as many people on the Enterprise as would have been, and also there are a lot of transporter rooms. So this was just showing that they were, it's the utopia, it's the future, so it's very methodical and everyone is calm and we just do what we're told and everything works.
That actually makes more sense to me because even if they tell you it's not a drill, you're like,
Right.
Okay, but I'm already in a starbase. I'm not going to go floating off into space. I'll actually just go into the starbase if something happens to the ship I'm currently standing on. So sure, I'll get off, but I'm not going to rush. Makes more sense now. Also, I was very confused as to why a child was left in charge, even if he is a prodigy. So thank you for explaining that.
And he was suspicious of them from the start, wasn't he? Because didn't he ask them some questions, and they said something like
they were shady.
On their face. Yeah, they rolled a deception of 001. Like they didn't say a believable thing, and so Wesley was onto them, and so he was always hanging out asking questions.
Well, Wesley's always investigating and asking questions, and he was trying to figure out what they were doing because it wasn't something that he understood, and it was because these Binards, as they're called, that there was like a little interesting gender thing we should talk about in a minute.
Yes.
But he asked them, like, why are they talking in binary? And they said, oh, see this pack here? We
gesture.
are part computer. We are connected to each other because we have this waistband pack that lights up and is a mini computer that looks like a Walkman. And it has its positives, but also its negatives. Dun dun dun. We'll find out about that later. What could possibly happen if you give your brain power over to a computer?
Uh-oh. But yeah, I wanted to bring up the gender thing too, because I thought this was potentially a great example of non-binary characters. They sort of,
pun intended.
Totally, it's non-binary binars. Also, in this sort of like explanation, I think it's in the Turbo Lift, Riker and Picard are talking about what they are going to do with their time off, and Picard mentions his personal relaxation light, and I'm dying to know.
Light?
Yeah, he's like, I'm going to turn on my personal relaxation light and read a book. It's like,
I did also write down personal relaxation light.
Yeah.
I completely missed that. I think I was writing about this like clarification. There's the other guy that looks like Picard a little bit.
Yeah.
Quinteros
like,
or something like that?
Yeah,
Quinteros.
but like a sexy South American version. And I mean, they're all sexy, let's be real.
Yeah.
Bald men, huh? And he's like, Riker calls them gentlemen, and he says,
Yes.
oh no, those are ladies. But I wrote down like, non-binary wasn't a thing, huh? Because I feel like they would fit into that category.
Quinteros points out like, oh, they don't follow a gender norm like we. They're not gentlemen or ladies. Like they say that. But then later, when Riker is in the holodeck, examining their work, he's like, boys, da da da, and just like, have you seen? He
calls them gentlemen again,
right? Yeah. If you've seen The Good Place, there's a character of Janet who is a robot, like AI type of thing, and anytime anyone's like, way to go, girl, she's like, not a girl, and I just have that on like reflex now. And he was like, well done, boys. I was like, not boys. They're like, gentlemen, you've done it. Or like, not gentlemen.
Oh man, Janet is a great prototype for that. I mean,
Yes.
not prototype, it came after. It was already a widely recognized concept, but example of in modern culture that we all love. Janet's the best. Evil Janet's even better. Sorry.
Yep.
Going back to Quinteros real quick, that was actually played by a guy named Gene Dynarski, and he was actually in Star Trek the original series.
Oh, really?
He was in twice. I can't remember which episodes. Let me see if I can find it. Mudd's Women.
Oh, so with some of the Harry Mudd stuff.
Yeah, and The Mark of Gideon.
Ooh, mm-hmm.
Yeah. So he was one of the few ones to actually appear in both the original and a spinoff.
This first season features a lot of little incidental actors that are coming back to sort of reprise or portray a new character in this new series.
Well, they wanted to give service to the fans, I'm sure, that you love the original series and we're doing new things and we're bringing in new viewers, but we still want to wink at you guys that were around last time.
Right.
Here you go.
Yeah.
Now, it's something interesting I want to bring up about 10 and 01 once again, is that it's mentioned in that same scene that they're twins. So I wonder, it's occurring to me now, are all binards essentially in a set of two?
It seems to be that way, and that's an interesting question. And then what happens if one dies? You know, there are a lot of interesting implications with this race.
Well, if it's similar to the way their computers work, then the other one dies, hinting at the finale.
Boop, boop, boop.
It's a lot of fanfare from you today.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
No,
it's
not
great.
a problem.
No, it's too much. It's too much.
But we touched a bit on the B plot in that Riker gets seduced into staying in the holodeck along with Picard. But some great memorable things from that is that we love all jazz except Dixieland because you absolutely cannot dance to it. And also, Jesus, Picard, knock when you enter a holodeck. Like,
Yeah.
what are you doing?
I mean, I think that you need to be able to they need to have like a special fake doorknob on the slidey doors so you can put your sock or your hat there.
Yeah, or just if a holodeck is occupied, that literally could be anything. Just don't.
But then, did Riker? Yeah, right. Did Riker leave it unlocked then?
Ooh.
who
Maybe
is he
he wants
waiting
to be
for?
discovered.
Maybe
You
it's
want
the
Troy
danger.
to come in?
Yeah.
Maybe he's. If you're not a voyeur, if you're a voyee, what's that called?
Right. I don't know.
Exhibitionist. He's
There
an
it is.
exhibitionist.
Yeah. Riker is
also-
horny on Maine again.
Yeah, horny on main, and which I finally looked up what that meant.
Oh, yeah. Oh, sorry.
It's on your main social account
Yes.
instead of like a fake side account that you make just to be horny on.
Right. He's horny in
Horny on
front of
Maine.
the other officers in uniform. He's
I
horny on
get
Maine.
it now. It
I
makes
didn't
so
know
much
what that
more
meant
sense.
either.
Sorry.
So he's so horny on Maine because he's on the goddamn clock.
Yeah.
And so the Bynards are there by the entrance to the holodeck, and they're like, it's been updated. And he's like, cool, let me check this out. Oh, and let me just say I was super upset because he goes, Jazz Club, Kansas City, my hometown, 1958. Yeah! I'm
Not
so
good enough.
excited. Never mind. New Orleans. Riker, eat a dick. Eat a dick, Riker.
Well, he does play the
Go
bone.
eat a dick on Maine.
Yeah. Speaking of which, it would be impossible to conceal a boner in these uniforms.
Yeah, I was wondering about
They
that.
have a special cup, don't worry.
Oh, okay. Because I was like, Picard's going to come in and just see everything.
Yeah,
Like,
Riker's
he's
going to be
been-
at full attention for the captain.
Oh,
Yeah,
my
or-
goodness.
Yeah, Picard's going to come in.
He also picked a New Orleans jazz bar at 2 a.m. where people should be pretty sloppy. Like, why wouldn't he choose closer to like 10:30 or 11 when their
Because
drinks
he
are
wants
really
his
setting
sax
in?
to sound better.
Well, also, I feel like
trombone.
this is like a historian that's like only heard about New Orleans and is like, oh yeah, I heard that
That's
2
a good
a.m.
point.
is
Yeah,
a good
yeah.
time or whatever. And no blondes can like jazz.
Oh, yeah, he was so rude about it. There was a blonde. He says, no blondes like Jazz. And then, like, a slightly darker strawberry blonde woman appears. Oh, yeah, this is Jazz. And then I forget why, but he lands on Minuet, the
Right.
love of his life. And this brings up really interesting philosophical and moral questions about the B-plot, the Turing test. She seems so real because she is real. I mean, she exists within a certain context. She's smart enough, or this programming is smart enough to learn French from the computer as soon as Picard comes in to impress him. So we care about her. And this is like creating this holodeck with this level of intelligence means that you're essentially like murdering all of these holodeck characters every time you reset.
Yeah, that's one way of looking at it, huh?
You slaughter them in cold hard binary blood.
Right. I think that you'll find especially with Next Gen, a lot of the conversation revolves around like android sentience because we have Data as a character. In Star Trek Voyager, we start to examine hologram sentience because we've got a hologram character that's a part of the main crew. So you're exactly right. As these technologies develop, the question comes about like how much sentience do these holograms have and how much agency should we give them?
I was wondering about this today because I was like, so do we classify it when they are aware of their own existence and therefore their potential for non-existence? Because then do we have to like consider that we should keep them around or at least consider their choices? But then do they make choices because they're programmed or are their choices a result of their programming? It's such a blurry line.
You bring up an interesting point of the awareness of sentience. This is a huge jump from The Big Goodbye, so I'm surprised to hear the fact that they thought of filming them in the other order because of the way the holodeck characters respond to their own discussion of their state.
Actually, I disagree. I think it would make more sense if they were flipped because of some of the remarks that Picard makes. If the Bynars had done this modification to the holodeck first and created the character of Minuet, it made it more believable that the 20s gangster characters would accept their sentience so quickly, or accept their being a hologram so quickly. You know what I mean? If the Bynars had already made those enhancements, it was less of a shock. But now when Picard comes in and sees Minuet and says, like, this is astounding, it's like, not really, because those gangsters were pretty advanced that you ran into earlier,
I don't
too.
know. She's a lot more advanced than those
Maybe.
gangsters, if you ask me. Well, because they were one-dimensional in
That's
their
true.
character portrayals, and then I remember them being sort of uncomprehending at first when they were told that they're holograms. That's not true at all. This is what?
Right.
Versus Minuet is like, yeah, I see the door opening. It's fine. I'm a hologram. This
Right,
is
but that's
how it's
also
supposed
what
to
she
be.
was programmed to do by the
Yes.
Bynars.
Yeah, she
True.
seems like kind of like a messenger for the
Yeah.
Bynars and less an actual hologram, I guess. I don't know where I draw the line on that, but she seems like something they set up to like let Riker know, right?
And they did a great little drop. I think it was I don't remember which character let it slip, but they said something along the lines of like a computer can analyze all of our little ticks
Picard
and quirks.
says this.
Picard says it, and make decisions of what we would like before we even know. And so that's what they're saying the Bynars did. They saw Riker interact with the holodeck and then got a few modifications off of him, and were able to quickly process what would be the best lure to keep him here.
Not
So
a
it wasn't
blonde.
that, right, it's not a whole lot. But it's not that they needed Riker specifically, it's just that he was there and and easy to target to be able to stay in the holodeck.
Man, I hope future capturing of Riker just involves brunette women and trombone access.
You know,
I have a feeling we're going to see it again.
Yeah, but...
Oh. Well, we didn't mention the C plot, which is Data
Learning to paint.
painting.
Right. That line of the blind man teaching the android to paint seemed very reductive, and I don't know how I felt about it. And I was like, Riker, what are you doing?
I was like, he was trying to make a point, and I just don't know what the point was. Like,
Yeah.
it felt
Riker
like
does
a
that a lot.
half-hearted joke / parable. I don't know what it was.
Yeah, that's a page in someone's book. It was like, is it?
Yeah, did that book sell well? Because I haven't read it.
Yeah.
I was interested in the idea that the holodeck produces smells. I kind of forgot about that aspect of it as well. Do you think it produces pheromones? Because didn't he smell her when he kissed her, I'd imagine?
That's
He
very
specifically
interesting.
did not. He was holding her close, and he said, I can't believe how real you are. Your touch, your feel, the things you say, the things
He
that I
said
want you
smell,
to say
too.
before you even said them. Did he say smell? Because I
Yeah.
was thinking smell, and I was waiting for him to say it.
I
I
thought
don't
they
think he
mentioned
did.
smell. Maybe he referenced it in to the bar, but I thought he said he smelled her too.
Yeah, and he went in for a close sniff of her shoulder collarbone area, and I was like,
Yeah.
intimate.
It's a great place.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's really interesting to see, where they're placing the limits on the holodeck now, too, because now they're essentially saying it could be anything and it's indistinguishable from reality.
Yeah, that's true. That we're in a potential Westworld situation, right?
Yeah.
Right. And why would you ever leave if you have access to this? I mean,
that
it could be so
comes up, too.
addicting. Oh, good. Because I thought, if I were Riker, I would just find my own holodeck on a star base somewhere and never leave if this was all I wanted.
We're all going to be Barclay someday. You'll get that later.
Minuet speaks French to Picard. They don't subtitle the French. I always like it when shows don't bother to tell you what they're saying. You just have to figure it out.
It was an artistic choice.
No, I'm saying that's a great choice. When I say don't bother, I don't mean they were lazy about it. I mean they didn't explain it. We had to kind of figure it out, and it was nice too.
Because it's not about the words,
No, it's about knocking in that one personality trait, the French thing. Remember?
Remember? No children, French, remember?
Right. That's
See?
it.
Okay, so the problem comes up in sort of midpoint of the show where Data and Geordi are the only ones around to handle it, and they make moves quickly.
Data does, yeah.
Yeah, Data, there's trouble in main engineering. They describe it as the magnetic containment of antimatter is let loose or something. It's not magnetized anymore. The antimatter is going to destroy the whole ship, so they got to offload. And they try one time, Data for captain, and then he's like, nope, nothing happening. I got to do it. Everyone abandon the ship. And Geordi's like, is this too soon? And he goes, based on all information presently available, this course of action is correct.
Yeah,
and I
bud.
thought, wow, this sounds like a professional Magic player.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Also, I want Data just to tell me what to do all the time. Just be like, calculate this and tell me what to do.
Yeah.
I feel like he does this a couple times in the first season, and I can't remember him doing it a lot more, but maybe we'll see. He just kind of takes control in his own way. He did it previously. I think was it last episode or 2 episodes ago where he was calculating the time back to the Romulan system.
Yeah.
Yeah, where he's kind of belaying the pecking
That was
order
Angel
a little bit.
1. I
Yeah,
think.
it was Angel 1 because he was the only one that could go back to the ship because of the virus,
Right.
and he found a nuance to be like, actually, you said to do it as quick as I could with this outcome happening, and that outcome is impossible. Therefore, I have taken it upon myself to follow this other course of action.
The shot when he first announces that all hands should abandon ship, I'm not sure if you guys notice it, but there's 3 extras in a corridor. They listen to the message and they go all in a completely different direction.
Scatter.
No one heads for the same exit. They all head for different exits.
So I think they were being rational. There's many different transport pods.
They have to check in with their families.
There's a huge long announcement as if they hadn't planned for this before. They're assigning people during the evacuation.
Okay, so have you ever been on a cruise before? I
Yes.
hadn't until recently. We did, as library bards, we did a cruise last year, and I didn't know the elaborate procedures that they
drill?
go to, the drills and stuff like that. Of and and watching this now, I'm like, oh, this is exactly what it is. Like, everyone gets assigned a place to go. You would get assigned a shuttle or a transportation pad or whatever. So I thought that it was really well done.
They've got it down to a really great system on those cruise ships because they even have like little signs on the floor so everybody can figure it out. Like, you have to be really dense to not get it from the drill. And when we're talking on cruise lines, that's possible.
Right.
You got to design for the lowest common denominator, Jake. There's always that person.
I know. I stood behind them at the buffet plenty of times. I'm aware.
Yeah.
And they've got the drink package, so they're...
I've never been on a cruise, and
it's a
based
time.
on the way the world's going, I may never get
They have to remind those people not to bring the drinks to the drill. Like, you can't have a 32-ounce drink with you while you're boarding the lifeboat.
I don't understand. I have 2 hands.
Right.
It's only 1 drink. Before we move on from this scene with Geordi and Data, I just was really blown away with this scene. I thought that the acting really stepped up. The intensity of this moment was very much there. Like, I find that earlier in the show, there was a lot of shots where they just got the wide shot where you see, like, the cowboy shot, thighs up, basically, of everybody, and that's when an actor can sometimes get into a place where it's like, I'm not sure what to do with my body. Do I just stand still, or like, you got way too much of me in the frame here? And this, the framing was very deliberate and intense, and there was like a lot of movement to it that was conveying the intensity of the situation. And this episode in particular, another instance where I was just like, everything has stepped up a little bit. I don't know. We're about midway through the season, and
they're combining the tricks because when they first started off, they're using the tricks of the soap opera, which was very stationary camera. It's quick, 2 shots, let's get the scene and get out. Now that it had some popularity and they could use some of the footage from the motion picture, I assume, they could sort of match that by taking their time and actually setting up shots and going through. So I think you can kind of see that. And I feel like Patrick Stewart has sort of like elevated the cast to this level of like, everyone wants to perform now. They found the heart of these characters, and you can kind of see that in this too with the pairings, because we see that theme with the Binars, but then we see that with Picard and Riker. They are a pair together, and they need to activate their the self-destruct together or cancel it together. They're working in the same way as the Binars, and we see that with Geordi and Data, in that Data feels guilty about the choices that he had to make, and Geordi has to be the sort of stoic one of like, no, you made the right calls, you are like calculating, but you did the right thing, you need time to discover your painting. Yeah.
Well, I want to talk more about the buddy cop of Riker and Picard, but then we sort of go down to the space base for a little bit because everybody's evacuated except for our 2 heroes in the holodeck in Jazztown, and then everybody else is like, can't even scan for them on the ship because the Binards steal the ship, which we haven't really talked about yet. They steal the ship because they had faked all this antimatter situation, and then it just zooms off, and it's like, wait a minute, the car was...
So
Did you leave the keys in the car?
Yeah, that was the protocol that Data initiated so that if it did blow up, it wouldn't blow up while it was attached to the station. So the protocol was get everybody off and then zoom it away because we can't stop this from exploding. The sort of reaction for all Federation-based spacecraft is this matter and antimatter reaction, converting or sort of like cycling between matter and antimatter, and then we contain it with this magnetic field within this warp core. So if the magnetic field like sort of comes apart, then this reaction is unstable, and it's like a nuclear type reaction where it would just obliterate everything. So the warp core is very unstable on its own. The use of dilithium crystals and things like that it all makes it very unstable. And so they go through their technobabble of like, there's for some reason this field is destabilizing. We got to get everybody off or the whole thing's going to explode. So he's like, instead of that, let's evacuate everybody, send it off, and then they discover it's magically getting better on its own, and then you can tell this was a part of the Binar's plan the whole time.
And listeners, I'll be putting a link to Xander's Engineering 101 class at Pasadena Community College. It's going to be opening up this semester, but I think it'll be online for the first session.
Yeah.
The thing is, you start to understand the technobabble. It's
There
bizarre.
is a logic to it when you start to hear it repeated, and you're like, oh, they used that one before. I'm starting to get it. Maybe they should increase that, and then you hear them make that solution, and you're like,
it's so exciting
and concerning at the same time.
Yes, yeah, but it makes it fun to role play.
Yeah, for sure. Oh yeah. Actually, that's a good. You should plug your show right now.
Yeah, well, yeah, I play an engineer on Clear Skies, the Star Trek RPG show over at Queuetimes.
Where can that be found?
Twitch.tv/Queuetimes.
And I'll put a link to that in the description.
Heck yeah.
So not in addition to that opening shot of the starbase being pulled from Star Trek 3, The Search for Spock, the whole sequence of stealing the Enterprise is actually a little bit lifted from that movie as well.
Oh, I believe it.
I'm not going to talk all about that film, but that scene where they, where Kirk and his crew actually steal the Enterprise from Stardock is, I think, one of my favorite scenes of the original movies. I'll put a link to the scene on YouTube in the description. It also is scored really well. And speaking of score, this episode won an Emmy Award for outstanding sound editing.
I didn't know that.
I just found that out, as a matter of fact. Now, I think it's mostly for like the sound editing, not just the composition of music or anything like that.
Right.
But still, I really enjoyed the music in this episode as well. There's something about that scene where it's super slow. It's in a quarter impulse power. And in the actual movie, the Enterprise is slowly pulling out of space dock, and the Excelsior, a larger ship, is actually slowly following it. And there's like a lot of tension going at like 5 miles an hour.
Yeah.
And it's one of the coolest aspects of Star Trek is that they somehow made that exciting. And the score to it is absolutely brilliant by James Horner. I highly recommend everybody listen to it and get inspired.
Wow, we brought it today.
Okay, I just want to talk a little bit about as things flip and Picard and Riker save the day. So you were talking about how they've really paired off characters, and there's just they when they figure out what's happening, they interview the computer to find out the situation and come up with a plan on the fly.
Yeah.
They start walking down the hallway in step with one another, and they go into the weapons locker. And you kind of like, I love that they're walking together. It was just so powerful.
They were walking very close.
Yeah. And then they go into the weapons locker, and you assume they're going to come out with like 25 guns and an ammo belt across their chest, and they step out and they each have a phaser.
One phaser, yeah. No, I think that we can kind of see that some of the shots that would be okay seem a little uncomfortably close because of the angle of the camera on some of it, especially Riker just getting in Picard's like personal space.
Yeah, the blocking was strange that way. I wonder if they were just the way the production had pushed up the cameras or something in the corridor.
I think that's what I would guess.
Yeah.
Now let's talk about how we would justify if you're trying to scare the people, I guess, that stole your ship into letting you onto the bridge when you know it might be locked. Would you set a timer for 4 minutes worth of negotiation and getting into the bridge? When you need to teleport in and might get shot when you get there?
And they were kind of just power walking. They weren't running.
Yeah.
Like, this
The
is
urgency.
a short amount of time here.
And then we cut to the starbase and get the saddest line of the episode, which was, I should not have been painting.
Yeah.
You should always be painting, Data. You should always be painting.
Well, this
Right.
comes back to the real question. Do we allow sentient beings to paint when they can be working 24 hours if they don't need to sleep?
Right? It's the same argument that you can bring up with Minuet. Does she continue to exist when the hologram is not on, or does she exist only when you go in?
I kind of felt a little more sorry for the 20s gangsters in some way, even though she's much more charming than them, because they actually went and kind of had hope and then just disintegrated and watched themselves disintegrate, which was kind of traumatizing.
That's true.
I felt bad for those guys.
Well, we promised that we talk about what happened to the Bynards, which is that when you fuse your own brain with a supercomputer, you are making yourself vulnerable to an electromagnetic pulse from a supernova. So a star went supernova before they thought it would. They knew that they had to download their data onto the biggest computer they could possibly find. And I guess our very own Enterprise, this Galaxy class ship, is maybe the most powerful thing floating around the universe right now, because that's why they steal it, is because their whole collective knowledge of their people can be saved by downloading it to the ship, and then after the EMP, downloading it back to the planet's computer. So there you go. They didn't even.
Foolproof plan.
It wasn't even stealing. It was just borrowing.
Yeah.
They realize they're near file capacity though when they find Riker.trombone.hollow. Like it's a huge file. It's
Just
way
massive.
too big. Yeah.
Ooh, does he really know how to play the trombone? Or can you download a thing that moves
like the
it for
Matrix.
you and makes makes you instantly good at trombone?
I guess that's
holodeck
like
even more now.
right. That's like playing a game of Magic on the computer and just automatically being good at it. Like, what's the point?
Shots fired.
No, I'm just saying it's more fun to play the trombone than it would be just to have the computer do it for you and sit there and listen to trombone music.
Wow. Okay. You tell me if you want to tap wilderness reclamation 3 times and choose the correct mana.
Well, we made it
know.
14 episodes before we had to quit because the relationships just didn't work out. Good try, guys. I liked this episode. I enjoyed it a lot. I thought it was a good classic Trek episode in terms of like a great A and B plot that did a lot of questions for both an alien species and some holodeck stuff, some fun starship maneuvering. It was great.
Yeah, there was some like a little teensy bit of misogyny that I could do without in dealing with Minuet, but that's
Yeah, you mean
whatever.
Riker shopping for women? That was really awkward.
Yeah, all of it.
And pretty much just judging them by their hair color.
Right?
And
Didn't
then
even talk to any. The blonde could have been like an absolute genius.
Also,
you never know.
Isn't it just hair color? Just dye the same actress's hair, right? Like,
I know.
it could be the same woman.
Yeah, paying the same woman to come back for 2 different days after dyeing her hair costs more.
There you
That's
go.
true.
To have that set rather than just paying 2 more actresses a day rate.
Yikes.
But yeah, we learned a lot. We learned that when you like program a sex doll, she might be hard to forget.
Keep
That's
that
the lesson
close
we
to
all
your
learned
chest.
today.
Yeah.
When you program a sex doll.
Oh man, he's not gonna forget that one anytime soon.
Real quick, I know that we've gone off on a few tangents on this one, but Becca, I had the thought, like, during this episode, for me, if they had programmed, like, a bunch of just beautiful men that I could go and, like, be in a jazz club with, I don't think that there would be a combination of a hologram that would get me so, like, enticed that I wouldn't be like, I'm going to do this later. Like, I don't know.
Oh,
for you, do you think that there would be?
Are you asking if something could hit all your buttons just by a glance? Is that what you're saying?
To the
Are
point
you
where...
asking if we're as much of horn dogs as Riker?
As Riker,
is?
yeah. I'm like,
Yeah.
would this work on me? I don't know. I guess
Jason
it
Momoa
depends.
with 3 different hair colors and a holodeck? Yeah.
Okay, all right, we got there.
That was 11001001, and next week we get to go see Too Short a Season. When an elderly Starfleet admiral hides a deadly secret, he leads the Enterprise D into a hostage rescue mission.
Engage.
Got it.
Okay, yeah, we did actually.
Jake, did you say it too?
I did, but I whispered it.
We all whispered it.
I said it.